Are the Jacksonville Jaguars primed to recapture the buzz coming out of the 2022 season? We're examining the state of the Jaguars roster today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who make Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Joseph, this is a very pro let people like things podcast, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to start today with something that I don't enjoy, but I know a lot of people do. And it is a very monumentous day for people who like that thing.
Okay, it's May 28th, Tuesday.
Yes.
Should I know what this thing is?
I don't know if you know what it is, but I would imagine you're going to be pretty fired up when you hear it if you haven't heard it yet.
So now that you've certainly set the table here, this is something that you acknowledge that you let people like things. It's something that is monumentous.
We let people like
right. Yeah, it's a thing. But you're here to tell us that this is something that you don't like, but it's an important day for this thing.
And it's been like a bit for several years that I don't like this thing.
Okay, let us know what it is.
Happy Angel Hernandez retiring from baseball day to you. That dude can get piped, man. Get out of here. All of the montages that have dropped in 12 hours since it's been announced that he's retiring, I hope he has a horrible retirement. I hope his leisure things get ruined in the same way that he's ruined so many people's leisure experience of watching baseball.
Dick Bavetta, Angel Hernandez, Ed Hockley, right? Like the Mount Rushmore. I'm not sure who the fourth guy is. It might be this guy. Is it Chet Matheny, the guy right now that just he's pissed off every single game in the NFL? That guy might be a problem. But I'm trying to think of the Mount Rushmore of bad officials across sports. I mean, those guys are three of them.
Yeah.
Dick Bavetta to me ruined so many basketball games.
It's like if you're on the call of a game and your name comes up explicitly for a storyline other than just, oh, here's so-and-so to make a call. Yeah. Every time you call a game, you probably got a problem. And with Angel Hernandez, it feels like every year there's like he's managed to top himself or just the word. I saw the strike call that he made in the World Baseball Classic, that if there's a left-handed batter and the pitch was thrown, there's a slider that got away from the pitcher trying to go off the corner of the plate, and it would have hit a right-handed batter, like in the stomach, and he called a strike.
It's funny, I tweeted out the day before Angel Hernandez announced his retirement that the only baseball highlights to come across my timeline are just blown calls by umpires. I don't see any cool plays, diving catches, home runs hit out of the stadium. It's like, oh, so yeah, they got their own problems
now to not make it. Hey, we're doing electric chains in football now.
We're testing that, right?
Trying it.
Yeah.
Open-minded, like to try new things.
Right. Okay.
Let's try talking about the Jaguars.
We should. Yeah. Jacksonville Jaguars. Welcome. You're under the microscope today. This is AFC South week. Yesterday was the Texans. Today's the Jaguars. And what we're doing is examining your roster, studying your football team, and we're grading every single player on your roster. And they go into a bucket, either roster cornerstone, quality starter, rookie, adequate starter, replacement level, quality depth, non-roster caliber, incomplete evaluation, or a developmental practice squad player. And there's a score associated with each bucket that you're dropped in, and it's weighted in terms of positional importance. And at the end of this process, this is team number 10 of 32, We will have graded every single roster. We'll be able to tell you who's got the best, who's got the worst. And it's a part of our yearly calendar here on Locked On NFL Scouting. And so excited to dive into this football team that they were the darlings of the NFL coming out of 2022. Didn't quite, meet the moment in 2023. And I'm sure they're looking to prove that they are ready to be a contender in the AFC. But we'll let you know how we feel about that throughout the course of this conversation.
Well, I think that's the frustrating thing for Jacksonville too, right? Is week 11 comes to a close. They beat a division rival by 20 points. They're 7-3, and they're in a 4-way tie for first place in the AFC conference. And just the wheels absolutely fall off the bus. They finished 1-5. They played some tough games. Obviously, Cleveland, in the midst of their playoff push, they lost the overtime game against Cincinnati that was there for the taking. I think there was a call in late in that game that kind of flipped the field back against Jacksonville. The only win was against Carolina. And that's where they finished strong in 2022. You come out in 2023 and you're 7-3 to start. It looked like they were going to live up to the hype. And they were plagued with a couple of different issues. They turned the ball over a ton the final month of the season. And some of that was because Trevor Lawrence missed a game and CJ Beathard came in. And while he didn't turn the ball over a ton, he was sacked 10% of the time. So you see them go out and get Mac Jones as backup quarterback as a nice insurance policy for him with some starting experience. But this Jacksonville conversation for me does start with Trevor Lawrence. I think it has to start with Trevor Lawrence.
I think with Trevor Lawrence and this team, I think it's just situational football. They're middling third down team, below average red zone team. Like you mentioned, they turn over the ball, and it feels like those turnovers come at bad times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not sure that they're really lacking a whole lot in terms of talent. There's some holes on this roster that I think have to get corrected, but I think they have to play better. Like they have to play better situational football to be able to kind of meet the expectation that falls on them. Like you mentioned, 8-3 to 9-8 and out of the playoffs. Okay, so you want to start the conversation with Trevor Lawrence, which is really interesting how the quarterbacks factor into these conversations, right? It's all over the place to this point. What do you have to say about it?
I think there's a lot of things that Trevor does well, and you're hoping that year 3 with Doug Pederson, I think they kind of told you what they felt with the group. Obviously, they tried to bring back Calvin Ridley. That didn't work out. They get Brian Thomas in the first round, Gabe Davis. They get a little bit of different body types to play on the perimeter and complement what they have with a couple of really productive middle of the field players in Evan Engram, Christian Kirk as a vertical threat. I know he missed some time last year and that hurt them too. Travis Etienne and the growth that he showed as being an all-around player. And I think that was one of the more promising developments, but just for Trevor, when you hired Doug, kind of the expectation was Doug's the quarterback whisperer. He took the sabbatical year. He had all these coaching opportunities. He picked this job to work with this quarterback. And you just haven't quite seen the leap yet. There's been a lot of good moments, but I don't know, just watching the Tennessee game, week 18, Trevor's a couple opportunities there to kind of make a run in the second half and just some misfires, some miscommunications, balls out of bounds, inaccurate throws outside the numbers. And that game for me was just really an embodiment of like where I came away from Trevor. It's like, dude, you have it all. Just put it together. And it's like with the reinvestment in the skill players and bring back Evan Engram and year 3 in the scheme, like I want to see it happen. And it sounds like they're trying to work on an extension before the season. Yeah, which probably not a bad idea if like you continue to see it going that way. And I think it's worth making the investment in Trevor Lawrence. You're certainly not going to, I think, move on and find a lot of options that are anywhere close to what he's capable of being. Yeah. Right. And that's so much of the conversation. It's like, okay, well, like, what's your alternative?
Easiest thing you can do in the NFL is get worse at quarterback.
Right.
Right. I mean, come on now. So It's funny. I was listening to Tony Wiggins, outstanding host of Locked On Jaguars, talk about the Trevor Lawrence extension. And he's like, look, it's his turn. And then like, and that's the reality of it to an extent in the NFL where like man, has he proven everything that you want? No. But has he proven a good amount? Have you been around him for a good amount of time to kind of understand like the upside here? And I think you have. And if you do it now, I mean, potentially you could get it on a discount. And I think Trevor Lawrence, we look at him differently because not only was he the number one pick in the draft, but this was as hyped of a quarterback prospect as we've seen probably since Andrew Luck, right? I mean, this is a rare territory in terms of the way they were perceived as prospects. And so I think he is looked at and evaluated through a different lens, but obviously a big decision here coming for Jacksonville. And I'm excited to kind of break down a little bit more of the supporting cast on the other side of it. So be sure to stick with us.
One thing real quick.
Because I want to leave we're going late to the break for whatever you have to say right here.
I want to leave the Trevor Lawrence conversation on this side of the break.
All right.
Number one thing, Trevor Lawrence. I want to see better ball security. Have you seen his fumble numbers?
Fumbles are bad. Yeah, he fumbles all the time.
Yeah. So that's the easiest thing to kind of take all of the good and make it a little bit more consistent. We like to look at interception numbers, but he's lost 7 more fumbles than the next highest number for quarterbacks in the last 3 seasons. And it's Jared Goff with 14. Trevor's lost 21.
Dude, and they come in the red zone too, I swear. Every time I'm watching.
That's very low hanging fruit. There's only 6 quarterbacks or 6 players in the NFL over the last 3 years to lose double-digit fumbles. Trevor's got 21. That's the easy fix as far as fast tracking, improving the play in year 3 under Doug Pederson. And we'll leave Trevor there.
All right. Well, folks, maybe you want to get to some Jaguars games this year, or NFL games. The schedule's here. We know when the games are going to be played. So many high-profile matchups. If you want to get to these games, you got to go to Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. The app is awesome. It's easy to navigate. They specialize in last-minute tickets. They give you flash deals. They give you a seat view. I also love this. The tickets prices are all in. You don't have any surprises coming at the end of the purchase. The ticket price that you see is the price you will pay at the end. Plus, they send the ticket straight to your phone, so you don't have to dig through emails to find it. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
So the Trevor Lawrence fumble numbers, eye-opening. But how about Josh Dobbs and Desmond Ridder? 9. So they're tied for 7th in the NFL the last 3 years. They've played like 15 and 20 games respectively.
Not great. Not great.
9 lost fumbles. All right, keeping it on target. Let's get into these targets for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. This was a bit
Engram last year.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. It's a little surprising to me how intentional it felt that they were about really adding to this receiver core. Like, they wanted Calvin Ridley back. Mm-hmm. And like, then it became kind of known that they were the Brian Thomas team in the draft. And like, I think they probably still got Brian Thomas if they re-signed Calvin Ridley. It kind of felt like there was that type of momentum after you gave $13 million a season to Gabe Davis. And so you kind of mentioned earlier that you have these 2 bigger bodied guys in Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas that are very similar and different all at the same time. Brian Thomas has legit pull away speed. And Gabe Davis is very good at stacking down the field and winning with size and ball skills. Both, I think, have limitations as route runners. Gabe Davis, he's not really going to be a quick separation guy. He's not going to help you after the catch. Brian Thomas, you're hopeful that there's more of a ceiling there to unlock based on his youth, based on his athleticism that is superior to Gabe Davis to be a little bit more of a complete player. So I'm curious to see how that all develops. But the go-to guys for this passing game, Evan Engram, Christian Kirk. And, I think people might be sleeping a little on Christian Kirk. He had a little bit of an injury deal last year, but man, whenever that dude's on the field with Trevor Lawrence, the production is always there. I am now a dynasty owner of Christian Kirk. So I'm very excited. Very excited about Christian Kirk and his opportunity in this offense. And of course, Travis Etienne's going to catch the football as well. So I think we kind of know about Engram and Kirk. I'm really interested to see how Davis and Thomas factor into this mix.
Yeah, there's there's a long-term play with Brian Thomas that I'm excited to see what he becomes. I think the question that I had pre-draft was what is he ready for from the jump? Because a lot of his production only came from a handful of routes, fades and hitches and free access against zone, or just hitching up at 5 yards and catching the ball. And then all these explosive plays, a lot of them like slot fades and getting vertical down the field. Some of that overlaps with Christian Kirk, but for all of the clowning that Jacksonville took for when they first signed the Christian Kirk contract.
Yeah. They were ahead of the game.
That dude has earned every cent of what Jacksonville is paying him on that contract. And I think he is the straw that stirs the drink because he could space the field. He can win on all 3 levels. I think Brian Thomas maybe allows you to use Christian Kirk in more diverse variety of ways. And then Gabe Davis as another vertical plane type of player. You have some size and ball skills outside. Now, Christian Kirk can win up the middle of the field if you want him there. He can win vertically and spike on his own if you want to use him in that area. You can get him the ball and set up run after catch, because you still have other players that you can play off of who have been impactful players, be that Evan Engram or Travis Etienne, who we've mentioned already too, and what he showcased in his second year playing and how good he was from a volume perspective. I'm a little sympathetic towards Travis Etienne because I know he touched the ball a ton, right? 325 touches.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Pederson's already come out and said, like, we want to get other backs the ball a little bit more. Seems like they're still high on Tank Bigsby, who they drafted with a day 2 pick in 2023, and didn't really get a lot of run because there were some ball security issues there. Travis resolved his fumbling issues. He had 5 fumbles his rookie his rookie air quotes season, right? He missed his whole rookie season after Urban was going to play him at wide receiver. And then no fumbles last year for Etienne. 73 targets, 68, almost 60 catches. Like, I think he's a player that can do it all. And I know the efficiency per touch was not great. It dropped almost 1.5 yards in yards per carry last year. But that offensive line had a lot of issues. There was some lack of continuity. And I think Etienne, if you want to have some questions about his vision, that's fine. But he can catch the ball. He's explosive in space. He's got speed to the edge. He can run with power when he wants to. Like, there's a lot to like there. I think that's a really exciting development for them, is how he's continued to get, I think, get better. Doubled the touchdown production in spite of the dip in efficiency per carry.
You mentioned the offensive line and some of the issues that they had. I think that they've told, like, you can listen to what teams say, but what they do matters the most. And when you look over the last year, Jacksonville has made some significant moves to the interior of this offensive line, trading for and extending Ezra Cleveland, and then, of course, signing Mitch Morse in free agency. And to me, it's as much about the players that they've acquired and are now committed to as it is the players that they're, kind of pushing to the side. Guys like Ben Barch, guys like Luke Fortner, that Walker Little, like younger players that you're tired of waiting to figure out what these guys are, right? You wanted to get some stable veterans. And so I think in what is an important year for this offense and this team, I think leaning into those veterans that give you a lot of athleticism in the middle of that offensive line in Cleveland and Mitch Morse, to go with, of course, Brandon Scherf at right guard and Cam Robinson returning at left tackle. I think you've really elevated the floor of that group by bringing in some very stable veteran players and moving on from young players that, I think there was a lot of questions about those guys all coming out of college. And I think those questions continue early in their NFL's career. I think your ceiling for this line really comes from Anton Harrison and his development in year 2 as the right tackle. I think he showed us a lot of the pass pro upside that we expected, but can he be more physical in the run game and provide more there? So I think this offensive line looks a lot better right now than it was at this point last year with Cleveland and Morse, with Anton Harrison now as an experienced player with 1 year under his belt.
Well, and even you fast forward to September 1st when they did cutdowns and you had Cam Robinson on the suspension list for a short period of time. The 8 offensive linemen that they carried into after cuts: Walker Little, Ben Barch, Luke Fortner, None of them are starters right now. They were
Right.
all projected starters. Brandon Sheriff, Anton Harrison, Cole Van Lannon, Blake Hance, and Tyler Shatley.
Yeah,
that was the 8 guys on.
We got better.
Yeah,
we got better.
It's deeper and it's better, and obviously health is going to be a component there that helps them, because I don't think they're still the deepest offensive line, but they at least have some depth guys now that have played between Walker Little and Tyler Shatley. If those are your first 2 guys off the bench, they've played some meaningful snaps.
You forget Tyler Shatley's 33, dude. I feel like we were just talking about him. Was he coming out of Clemson? Is he going to be a center or a guard? Like, what's the ceiling? And he's 33 years old. Incredible. All right, Kyle, you think we should talk about the defense a little bit?
Yeah, there's a lot to get to there, too.
All right, well, we will do that on the other side of it, so be sure to stick with us. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. And look, they got some good stuff over there for the Jaguars. FanDuel has the Jaguars win total for 2024 set at 8.5. So if you think they're going to top that, go get in on that action. They have the Jags at plus 122 to make the playoffs. Here's another juicy one. Trevor Lawrence passing yards for 2024. They have that set at 3,800.5. So 3,800.5. If you want to go smash the over on that,
the over on that one,
go to FanDuel, FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Man, they started with a 3.
Kyle, they have Josh Allen's passing yards at like 36.25.
When's the last time Josh Allen had less than 36? What I guess the play there is if he misses time.
Right. He's been the most durable quarterback in the NFL, though, right? But maybe he's due.
Right. I don't know. I think that's the only argument for those numbers not starting with a 4.
Yeah.
For
they have
both of
Tua
those
right at 4,000, like an even 4,000 for Tua. But they do have Josh Allen. They have Josh Allen at 36.25 passing yards. Second highest odds to be the NFL MVP, though. So I don't know. Hey, it's all about
get some combo bets over there and
had yourself a little
season,
bit.
you know.
All right, defense for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the identity of this group is what they have up front with Josh Allen and the mega deal there, and Travon Walker as the #1 pick, and what he's kind of developed into year over year with the athleticism and the length. Roy Robertson Harrison had a really good season, kind of helping out for Devon Hamilton, who wasn't always available. They bring in Arik Armstead, who's a big time impact player. They got some young players that they drafted in Mason Smith and Jordan Jefferson. I like Travis Gibson as your third edge rusher. To me, this defense is about what they have right there. And of course, that linebacker with Foye Oluokun and Devin Lloyd, who seems to be an ascending player as well.
Yeah. I think you look at, first of all, the type is the type, right?
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah.
The type of player that they look for is a very obvious kind of player. And, them drafting Mason Smith was all that much more affirmation after drafting Travon.
Had to have him. They had to have him.
Oh yeah. another built in a laboratory build at the defensive line position. Yes, please. I like the depth. I'm interested to see how Yasir Abdullah continues to evolve his game as a young player. I think maybe you wish you had a little bit more edge depth. Like Abdullah has to be a good player for them to feel good about their edge depth behind Josh Allen and Travon Walker and Travis Gibson. But that defensive front has a lot of bodies that they can throw at you now in its totality. And because they're very consistent with the style of player and build that they're looking for, I feel like Mason Smith learning behind Arik Armstead is going to be an awesome opportunity for him.
Yeah.
And then getting Arik Armstead in free agency, and it was a 3-year deal that they signed him to with some pretty decent. Was it 19 per?
It was healthy. Yeah, it was around there.
So I think you have a nice blend between Robertson Harrison and what he can do as kind of a high floor player. Hamilton is a potential nose tackle when he's healthy. Armstead is a pass rusher. Mason Smith learning behind him, but a guy who, if you could just get him to use his length with consistency and then feel blocks and how you can draw that out. I guess the optimism there is they've started to see that success with Travon Walker, right? Because some of that was the same questions that existed with Travon Walker coming out. And I thought he was a more consistent player from year 1 to year 2. Obviously, he had the big boom in the pass rush production. But they're going to need this group to be good because I do have some questions on the back end.
Well, I have the perfect way to start the conversation about, the back end and particularly the cornerback position. And it's by letting you know that Stephon Gilmore, Steven Nelson,
Xavier Howard, still out there.
Yeah, these guys are out there. Dory Jackson. Yeah, they're looking for a team. I mean, like Tyson Campbell, obviously, I think this is a big year for Tyson Campbell, where I thought 2 years ago he was on his way to stardom. Last year, maybe a step back. It's contract year. This is a big one for him. But opposite of him is like Ronald Darby, who
Ronald Darby was okay in Baltimore last year.
Right, but he wasn't even signed to like August.
Right. Yeah.
I think you'd love to have him as your third corner.
If he was your third outside corner,
right,
which is what he really was in Baltimore.
Right.
With Brandon Stevens and Marlon Humphrey, and then Humphrey missed some time and Darby split the snaps with him, and you feel really good about that. But yeah, I think you make a great point and invoke some great names because even the depth behind Tyson Campbell and Ronald Darby.
Yeah.
We got Jerry and Jones, who's probably better as a slot type anyway, out of Florida State as a rookie. Monteric Brown, who I like coming out of Arkansas, but
we don't know yet.
And DeAndre Prince, kind of like the next guys in line here as the outside corners. It's somebody else who's played some meaningful snaps as an outside corner needs to be a part of this room, I think, for you to feel good going into the season.
I like their safety situation, though. Andre Cisco has become a stud on the back end. And then it's going to be fun to kind of sort out this Antonio Johnson, Darnell Savage deal where I feel like both have upside in the nickel. Both can play, regular safety as well. And then you have really good depth to me behind that in Andrew Wingard and Daniel Thomas and Terrell Edmonds. So questions at corner mostly where I feel like you're pretty loaded when it comes to safety and the slot corner nickel position.
Yeah. And kind of freaky guys too. Like Darnell Savage is a really good athlete when he's healthy. Antonio Johnson with his length. I think you pair that with Andre Cisco and his size and his length, and Tyson Campbell and his length that he has, and
length and
physicality, right? It's the type is the type. And I think you make a great point with some of the versatility of, even linebackers are long, right? Like Oluokun is long.
They can both cover and run. Yeah.
Yep. So, how can you overlap all of that length on the back end? You just need to make sure you have the basics of the perimeter play where if you want to funnel everything inside and use all your length and physicality, just make sure you got the guys on the outside that prevent it from turning into, we got some one-on-one matchups we're going to attack because we feel like we can be better than you in isolation on the outside.
Fascinating team.
Anybody we need to come to consensus? Travis Etienne, do we need to come to consensus there? Is it worth coming to consensus? I want to go to bat for him as a cornerstone. And it feels weird because I
did that. Yeah.
You were high. You were the 1 pound on the table for him last year, right?
Yeah. I was so excited. It was like the first 5-6 weeks of the season. I'm like, this is like a legit bell cow. They are riding this dude. And you said over 300 touches, right? I mean, that's got to be
25 touches. Yep.
Surely that's in the top 5 of the league last year. So focal point for this offense. I don't know, man. I think that was the one guy that we were kind of different on in terms of our assessment, and not that we were like far. Kyle had him as a franchise cornerstone. I had him as a quality starter, which is one tick below.
If somebody who's not a cornerstone right now for them becomes a cornerstone this year, who do you think it would be?
That's a fun question. I think there's candidates, and I think that's what's encouraging. I think Tyson Campbell's a candidate for that. I think Travon Walker's a candidate for that based on his ascension as a player.
Christian Kirk, if he's healthy, I think could make a case to be
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. Andre Cisco.
Yeah, they got a lot of ceiling for this football team.
Yeah. It's just how it all comes together. And you mentioned the offensive line and how they chose to address that. I certainly think that raises the floor. I mean, you saw like the scoring regression from them last year. They scored 400 points in Doug's first season. I think they scored 377 last year. That should raise the floor for a lot of this. And then how big of an impact can Brian Thomas make from the jump as a first-round pick? Like there's a lot of variance of outcomes, I think, for Jackson. They're one of the more high variance of outcomes teams that we've done thus far. And this is our 10th team.
I agree with that. And I also would say collectively, I like where this roster is at right now a lot more than I did at this point last year, where people didn't like what we had to say about Jacksonville going into last season.
Oh, I remember the comments.
Yeah.
They're pretty fired up at us.
So,
and then they started, of course, we're like, oh man, we're gonna hear it from them.
Right.
That I would agree with you wholeheartedly, though. In all seriousness, a team that I think addressed their needs as well as you could. It's a finite, limited resource league. It's not like you blank slate and you're gonna just call the first guy and the first guy's gonna say yes every single time. But I think their strategy and how they approach this offseason, as you said earlier, they kind of told you what they thought of certain elements of their team. And you and I think, agreed with the elements of their team that they had some concern with when it was all said and done. So that's the Jaguars. Tomorrow is the Indianapolis Colts. And then Thursday is the Tennessee Titans. And then Friday, we're going to put all the teams in the AFC South with all the position rooms. And we're going to do the tier makers, and we're going to rank them. And we're going to tell you how we personally score and view the quarterback rooms in the AFC South and the wide receiver or the skill players in the AFC South and the offensive lines in the AFC South, all the way down top to bottom on the roster. So that's this week here on Locked On NFL Scouting. Make sure you come back and see us, get the lowdown on the rest of the AFC South starting tomorrow with the Indianapolis Colts.